From type boxes to soul patterns, introducing the 336 SoulStack archetypes. Breaking out of the MBTI box. For decades, the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, MBTI, and its 16 personality types have offered a framework for understanding ourselves. Many of us have resonated with those four-letter type codes, finding validation in labels like INFJ or ESTP. Yet, as illuminating as MBTI can be, it also creates rigid boxes. Its structure fixes each personality into a mirror image set of cognitive functions, a predetermined stack where the dominant and inferior must be opposites, and the auxiliary and tertiary neatly mirror each other in reverse. This cognitive function mirroring means that if your dominant function is intuition, your inferior is forced to be sensing. If your auxiliary is thinking, your tertiary is assumed to be feeling, and so on. While this formula brings order, it can also feel limiting. Human psyches rarely fit perfectly into such black and white patterns. Many individuals have found that the MBTI's strict rules don't fully capture their nuances. You might have felt in between types or constrained by descriptions that overlook the unique blend of qualities that make you you. The classic system leaves little room for variation, only 16 possible configurations of mind, each an inflexible box. In reality, personality is more like a spectrum or a rich tapestry than a set of 16 containers. The soul craves recognition in its fullness, not just the part that fits a type description. This desire for a more nuanced, expansive understanding of personality inspired the creation of a new framework, one that moves beyond the boxes and into the living patterns of the psyche. Key limitations of the classic MBTI approach include only 16 fixed types. The MBTI confines billions of people into just 16 labels. Many subtle differences between individuals get lost when so few categories must describe everyone. Mirrored function order. MBTI enforces a strict flip of cognitive functions, dominant/inferior as one pair, auxiliary/tertiary as another. This one-size-fits-all hierarchy may not reflect how your mind actually works if your personal development doesn't follow the MBTI blueprint. Either slash or type boxes, you might resonate with aspects of 2 or 3 types, but MBTI pushes you to choose one best fit type. This can be frustrating if you don't cleanly match any single profile or if life changes bring out different facets of you. Faced with these constraints, we asked ourselves, what if we could honor the true complexity of the human psyche? What if personality could be described in poetic layers rather than rigid boxes? The SoulStack archetype system was born from these questions, an answer to the call for more freedom, accuracy, and depth in typology. The birth of a new framework, 336 ways to be human. Imagine a typology that expands the 16 types into a vibrant mosaic of 336 archetypes. The SoulStack framework does exactly this, by breaking the old walls and allowing every possible combination of cognitive functions to tell its story. Instead of stopping at a fixed type code, this model explores how your first 4 cognitive functions can align in many arrangements, each arrangement forming a distinct soul pattern with its own name and narrative. At its core, the system is built on 56 foundational types determined by your first 2 cognitive functions, the dominant and the auxiliary. These 2 functions act as the pillars of your personality, the primary duo that shapes your most obvious strengths and preferences. In the classic MBTI, only certain pairings of dominant and auxiliary are allowed, often one perceiving and one judging function, and usually one introverted, one extrovert. In the SoulStack model, we lift those restrictions. Any 2 different functions can form the core pairing if they truly feel like your top 2. Are you guided by 2 introverted processes, like a deep inner intuition coupled with rich internal feeling? That's valid here. Are you energized by 2 extrovert sides, say, extrovert thinking charging ahead with extrovert sensing? That, too, has a place. There are 8 cognitive functions to draw from: NI, NA, PHI, FE, T, TE, C, say, Jung's intuitive, feeling, thinking, and sensing functions in their introverted or extrovert forms, and each can potentially partner with any of the others as your leading pair. This gives 8 choices for a dominant function and 7 options for a distinct auxiliary, resulting in 56 possible core combinations. Instead of only 16 allowed pairings, we recognize dozens of unique duos of the mind. Yet we don't stop at those 56 core types. Human personality has more layers. Each core type blossoms into 6 variations, depending on the possible third and fourth functions that join the stack. In traditional MBTI, once you know the first 2 functions, the rest of the stack is preordained. There's no choice in tertiary or inferior. They are automatic mirror reflections. But in life, 2 people can share the same top 2 functions and still feel quite different, especially in their emotional tone or areas of struggle. Often, it's because of differences in their third or fourth functions, those subtler influences that MBTI assume to be the same, but which in reality might vary. The SoulStack framework honors this by allowing the tertiary and inferior positions to vary in multiple ways, with the only rule being that no function repeats in a single stack of 4. Each of the 56 core types can thus have 6 distinct flavors, depending on which functions fill the third and fourth slots. 56 core times 6 variants equals 336 total archetypes, a far richer range of identities to explore. Every one of these 336 SoulStack archetypes is defined by a unique stack of 4 cognitive functions drawn from the 8-function model in a specific order. The order of functions shapes expression. The first function is like your North Star or lead actor. The second function is your faithful supporting partner. The third brings a unique hue to your character, and the fourth lingers in the background as a shadowy figure, perhaps an influence you underestimate or wrestle with. No 2 archetypes share the exact same 4-function sequence. In this way, the model paints a nuanced portrait for virtually everyone. Instead of telling you, you're an INJ, so you must fit this single mold, it says, you are a visionary alchemist or a gentle guardian or a memory prophet. Let's explore what that means for you. Nuance and depth, the gift of the third function. One of the breakthroughs of this system is recognizing the importance of the tertiary, third, function in coloring personality. In many traditional type descriptions, the third function is an afterthought, something underdeveloped or childlike, but not given much spotlight. Here, we view the third function as the bringer of nuance, emotional tone, and personal depth to the psyche's story. If the first 2 functions set the stage and plot of your character, the third function infuses it with mood and individuality, almost like the soundtrack that makes a film uniquely moving. It often adds an element of surprise or contrast that rounds you out. For example, consider 2 individuals who share the same dominant and auxiliary functions of NI, introverted intuition, and TE, extrovert thinking. Both might be visionary, future-oriented strategists at first glance. But if one has Phi, introverted feeling, as their third function and the other has Phe, extrovert feeling, in that spot, their inner worlds will feel markedly different. The NI, TE person with tertiary Phi, the ethical strategist, carries a quiet idealism and personal moral code. There is a gentle fire of values behind their strategic mind. In contrast, the NI, TE person with tertiary Phe, the social architect, emphasizes human connection and collective harmony in their visions. They instinctively consider how their grand plans will touch people's hearts. These emotional tones, personal conscience in one case, interpersonal compassion in the other, arise from that third function. It adds a poetic depth that the bare bones of dominant and auxiliary alone could not capture. More generally, the third function often represents a more intimate, subjective side of you. It might be something you developed later in life or an ability that surfaces in safe, personal spaces rather than on the public stage. Because it isn't as blunt or strong as your top 2, the third function can operate in subtle, creative ways. It can be the source of your humor, your artistic streak, your secret sensitivity, or the particular lens through which you refine your life's meaning. In the SoulStack framework, We celebrate this tertiary influence. It's not lesser, it's the gentle undercurrent that can make two similar people beautifully different. Each archetype's description therefore highlights how the third function contributes nuance. It's the difference between a melody played plainly and one played with soul. The third function gives the psyche its soulful inflection. Shadows and healing, the wisdom of the fourth function. Lurking at the bottom of each four-function stack is the inferior, fourth, function. In Jungian terms, this is often your shadow, the part of you that is least conscious, most challenging, and yet ripe with potential for growth. Rather than ignoring this aspect or treating it as a mere weakness, the SoulStack system shines a compassionate light on it. The fourth function in each archetype reveals where your deepest healing and integration can occur. It symbolizes the kind of shadow work that, if undertaken, can complete the circle of your psyche. The fourth function tends to represent needs or qualities that you've unconsciously repressed or undervalued. Often it stands in contrast to your dominant strength, whispering of an opposite approach to life that feels uncomfortable but alluring. For someone who leads with swift thinking, the fourth function might be a neglected feeling side asking for acknowledgement of emotions and values. For someone grounded in concrete sensing, the fourth may be an elusive intuition urging them to dream beyond the tangible. In the SoulStack archetypes, this dynamic is made explicit. Every archetype's profile touches on what lies in shadow and what inner work might bring it into balance. Far from being a doom and gloom prophecy, the inferior function is presented as a gateway to wholeness. It often manifests as an unconscious need, a hunger our soul has, which we might project outward or stumble over until we learn to face it. For example, an archetype dubbed the embodied mystic, whose stack might be Ni, Se, Phi, Te, could have extrovert thinking, Te, as a fourth function. Though this person lives primarily in vision, Ni, experience, Se, and heartfelt values, Phi, they may feel a nagging pull to bring more structure and decisiveness, Te, into their lives. That Te shadow represents their journey to heal and strengthen, learning to build their dreams in reality, not just feel or see them. Similarly, someone called the quiet companion, perhaps Si, Fe, Phi, T, might find their inferior T, introverted thinking, emerging when they must set logical boundaries despite their caring nature, a challenge that, once embraced, makes their kindness wiser and more sustainable. By identifying the fourth function, the SoulStack framework gently points you toward your growth edge. Rather than trapping you in your comfort zone, it invites you to integrate that missing piece. In each of the 336 archetypes, the fourth function's influence is described in terms of potential healing. What happens when this archetype confronts its shadow? What superpower lies dormant in what it fears or struggles with? In this way, shadow work becomes an integral part of understanding who you are. Every type pattern is not just a box of traits, but a story of evolution, the journey of integrating light and shadow within the self. A soul-centric, poetic lens on personality. Perhaps the most striking difference you'll notice in this framework is its language. The 336 archetypes aren't labeled with dry codes or clinical jargon. They are brought to life with symbolic names that speak to the soul. Names like the prophetic dream weaver, the vision strategist, the gentle guardian, or the tactical sage evoke images and feelings. They read more like characters in a myth or roles in a grand story, because that is how we view each individual psyche, as a unique story, a pattern with purpose and poetry. This poetic approach is intentional. We believe that understanding your personality should feel like self-discovery, not pigeonholing. When you find your SoulStack archetype, the hope is that the name and description resonate with your inner self, giving you goosebumps of recognition or a sense of being truly seen. The names honor the soul's pattern, the deep currents running through your life, which often have a mythic quality. For example, if you identify as the memory prophet, you immediately get a sense of someone who uses remembrance of the past, memory, to foresee or guide the future, prophecy. There's a grandeur and gravitas to that identity that a code like Fe could never convey on its own. Likewise, a title like The Heart Jester paints a picture of a playful, empathetic soul who heals through light-hearted connection, a nuance that might be lost if we only said Fe, T-type. By using metaphor and imagery, the system speaks to both your mind and your heart. Each archetype's write-up reads almost like a character sketch or a vignette. You'll find rich descriptions with a forward-thinking and compassionate tone, describing not just behaviors, but the inner longings and gifts of that type of soul. This approach is very much soul-centric. It assumes that each person is more than just a collection of traits. There is a core essence, a soul, with its own calling and contribution to the world. The archetypes aim to capture that essence. In doing so, this framework aligns with spiritually curious and psychologically deep readers who sense there is something sacred about one's personality pattern. It merges the psychological with the poetic. Jungian function theory meets the language of archetype and soul. Crucially, this lens also fosters empathy. When you learn about these archetypes, you're not just memorizing dry facts, you're connecting with the human experience behind them. You might see a name like the nurturing anchor or the quantum thinker and instantly appreciate the value of that way of being. It humanizes the typology. In our shared human story, each archetype has a role and a dignity of its own. By honoring them with almost reverent titles, we validate the many ways a soul can shine. An invitation to self-awareness and integration. Ultimately, the 336 SoulStack archetypes are more than a classification system. They are an invitation. This framework invites you on a journey of self-awareness and emotional integration. By pinpointing your unique stack of functions and seeing it reflected in an archetypal narrative, you gain a mirror for your inner world. You might discover affirmations of talents you've always sensed in yourself, as well as gentle acknowledgments of struggles you've faced. Both light and shadow are given a name and meaning. In this way, self-discovery becomes less about fixing yourself into a type and more about embracing yourself as an evolving story. With greater awareness comes growth. Knowing your dominant and auxiliary functions confirms where your natural strengths lie. You can lean into them with pride and purpose. Understanding your third function adds insight into what truly moves you. It could explain why you gravitate towards certain hobbies, relationships, or creative outlets that feed that part of you. Recognizing your fourth function brings perhaps the greatest gift, empathy for your own weaknesses and a roadmap for healing. What once felt like a personal shortcoming or an area of recurring frustration can now be seen as important soul work. The framework gently suggests that integrating your inferior function, slowly and compassionately, will make you more balanced and whole. This knowledge can guide you in practices of personal development. Maybe you challenge yourself to use that fourth function in small ways, or you seek environments that support its growth, or simply you practice self-compassion when it trips you up. It's a guide to inner alchemy, turning overlooked parts of you into gold. Moreover, the SoulStack archetypes provide relationship insight that goes beyond surface-level compatibility charts. When you understand someone else's archetype, you begin to see the world through their eyes. The duo of functions steering their ship, the nuance their tertiary adds, the shadow that may underlie their quirks or conflicts. Instead of clashing with loved ones over differences, you might start to appreciate them as differences in soul pattern. For example, if you're a vision strategist type and your partner is a present romantic, you'll recognize that while you're always planning and future casting, your partner lives through immediate sensory joy and heartfelt presence. Neither of you is wrong. Both of you balance one another like day balances night. The archetypal language gives a non-judgmental, almost poetic framework to discuss and understand these differences. It encourages empathy and synergy. You learn how two souls with different stacks can dance together, each offering strengths where the other has shadows, each bringing a unique tone to the relationship. In work teams or friendships, too, this expanded typology shines. It's not about putting people in simplistic buckets, but about celebrating their specific genius. With 336 archetypes, everyone's gifts can be recognized more precisely. You start seeing that someone isn't just an extrovert, perhaps they are the inspirational executive, leading with enthusiastic vision, and human-centered structure, and that tells you so much more about how to engage and appreciate them. Another friend might be the internal monk, quietly living by an inner philosophical code, with you come to understand their need for solitude and integrity. In short, this framework provides a vocabulary for authentic understanding, helping us honor each person's soul path. Welcome to a Typology Reborn. In this introduction, we've pulled back the curtain on a new universe of personality, one that began as a response to MBTI's limitations and grew into something beyond its scope, something both practical and poetic. The 336 SoulStack archetypes are here to remind us that we contain multitudes. We are not static labels. We are living stories with depth, shadow, and light. As you continue into the subsequent chapters or episodes of the series, you'll have the chance to meet each family of archetypes, to recognize yourself and others in their reflective descriptions, and to gain tools for growth and connection. No single system can capture the entirety of a soul, but it is our hope that this framework brings you closer to seeing your own soul in full color. Let it be a map as you navigate inward, a set of lanterns as you explore the hidden corners of your psyche. Let it spark conversations with the people you care about, a new way to speak about who you are and what you need, and to listen to the same from them. Most of all, let it be an affirmation that your unique combination of gifts and challenges has a name, a purpose, and a beauty of its own. In the journey ahead, we step beyond the old boxes and into a landscape of soul patterns. Each archetype is a star in a vast constellation, and perhaps, as you find where you shine in that night sky, you will feel both a sense of wonder at your individuality and a profound connection to the tapestry of humanity. Welcome to the SoulStack Archetypes. Your story is about to unfold. Chapter 2: Building the Stack, Understanding the Architecture of Soul. Subtitle: The Four-Function Formula That Shapes Your Inner World. If the introduction opened the celestial map of 336 soul blueprint archetypes, this chapter hands you the compass. Now we begin to navigate. Because beyond the poetry of names and archetypes lies a powerful structure, the cognitive soul stack, your unique sequence of mental functions that forms the architecture of your mind, your emotions, your creativity, and your evolution. Where MBTI fixes type stacks into mirrored hierarchies, this framework sets you free. It allows for any non-repeating combination of the 8 cognitive functions, ordered from most conscious to least. The only rule: no duplicates. The rest? It's the unfolding of your soul's architecture. The 4 pillars of the soul stack. Your soul stack is built from 4 distinct functions, chosen from the classic Jungian set. Ni, introverted intuition. Na, extrovert intuition. Phi, introverted feeling. Fei, extrovert feeling. T, introverted thinking. Te, extrovert thinking. Si, introverted sensing. Se, extrovert sensing. Each function brings its own pattern of perception or decision-making, and the order they appear in your stack determines how you see the world, feel through it, think within it, and act upon it. Let's meet the 4 roles they play. 1. Dominant function, your North Star. The first function in your soul stack is the lead navigator of your personality. It's how your consciousness orients itself. It guides your default way of perceiving or judging reality, and most people who know you can sense this clearly. Whether it's the deep symbol seeing of Ni, the pattern surfing of Na, the ethical compass of Phi, or the logical structuring of Te, this function shapes your psychic signature. It is your power, your style, your aura. Two, auxiliary function, your inner ally. The second function supports and complements the dominant. While the dominant often feels like your true self, the auxiliary acts as your inner collaborator. It may balance the introverted/extrovert orientation of your dominant, or it may reinforce your direction with harmony. It's like the co-pilot of your psychic ship, sometimes amplifying, sometimes balancing. It's where your secondary strengths live. 3. Tertiary function, your soul's color. This is where it gets interesting. The third function adds emotional tone, personal flavor, and hidden gifts to your psyche. It often develops more fully in adolescence or adulthood and adds depth, contrast, and nuance to the otherwise logical structure. It's your inner artist, your unexpected softness, your delightfully different note. The tertiary often feels like a private comfort zone, a cozy corner of the self. Two people may have the same dominant and auxiliary, but different tertiaries will change the entire flavor of their presence. ANI. A person with Phi as their third function is emotionally principled. With Fae, they lead from social insight. These are distinct souls. 4. Inferior function, your hidden key. The fourth function is your blind spot or your portal to growth. It represents something you unconsciously crave but often avoid. It's both the part of you that feels the least natural and the most meaningful to integrate. Shadow work, healing, and deep maturity all emerge when we begin to understand our fourth function. If the dominant is your light, the inferior is your integration path. To honor this function is to soften, to stretch, to become more whole. That's why we don't treat it as a flaw. In the SoulStack system, your inferior function is sacred. Why not MBTI stack? In MBTI, the stack is auto-generated. If you have NI and Te first, then you're stuck with Phi and Say afterward. But life isn't always that clean. Some people report having dominant NI and auxiliary Te, but a strong Fae instead of Phi in the third slot. Others may clearly sense T instead. MBTI offers no room for that. The SoulStack model does. By allowing each person to discover their true four-function pattern, with no repetition, we open up 336 unique combinations that better reflect the complexity of real souls. This means you can be NI, Na, Phi, T, the prophetic dreamweaver. Na, Phi, Te, Si, the inspired builder. T, Say, Fae, Ni, the harmonizing operator. And many more. Each one is a living blueprint. Next, discovering your SoulStack. In the next chapter, we'll guide you through how to find your SoulStack, not by tests, but by resonance. We'll look at how to identify your top two functions and then explore how your third and fourth emerge over time. You'll begin to see not just how you think or feel, but how your soul is structured to evolve. Because this isn't just about knowing your type. It's about meeting your pattern and honoring it into wholeness. Chapter 3. Discovering your SoulStack. Subtitle: Finding the pattern that already lives within you. You are not a type to be assigned. You are a pattern already in motion. This chapter is about discovering the SoulStack that is already shaping your perception, your values, your conflicts, and your creative flow. Instead of taking a quiz that narrows you down into a label, you will uncover your type through resonance, through observing how your mind and heart move in the world. The process is reflective, intuitive, and holistic. Think of it like remembering something you've always known. In Chapter 2, we explored how the four positions of the SoulStack each play a role: the dominant leads, the auxiliary supports, the tertiary colors, and the inferior reveals. Now we ask, which functions are filling those roles in you? Step 1. Finding your dominant function. The dominant function is your home base. It's how you naturally interpret reality or evaluate meaning without needing to think about it. Ask yourself, what am I doing mentally when I feel most myself? What kind of problem-solving comes so easily that I don't even notice it? Do I tend to focus more on perception, taking in and interpreting data, or judgment, making decisions and assessments? Look through these simplified guides. Dominant perceivers. NI, you see symbolic meaning and underlying truths. You think in visions, predictions, and patterns of destiny. Na, you see possibilities, connections, and new angles. You think out loud, make intuitive leaps, and follow curiosity. C, you compare the present to the past. You remember details, traditions, and familiar sensations. Say, you live in the now, sensing everything directly. You act quickly, notice what others miss, and are physically aware. Dominant judges. Phi, you decide based on internal values and personal truth. You feel deeply and evaluate what is right for you. Fei, you decide based on social harmony and empathy. You read others well and respond with care. T, you decide through internal logic and conceptual clarity. You analyze everything and value internal consistency. Te, you decide through efficiency and external logic. You value results and build systems that work. Circle the one that feels like your default lens. Step 2. Identifying your auxiliary function. The auxiliary is your helper function. It supports your dominant by offering contrast or balance. For example, if your dominant is an introverted function, your auxiliary is likely extrovert, though not always. Ask, what part of me comes out more when I'm helping others, solving problems, or exploring ideas? Do I notice an inner dynamic where two different parts of me interact, one leading, one shaping or responding? Example pairings. A dominant NI type may have Te to structure and organize vision. A dominant N type may have Phi to guide choices through personal values. A dominant T type may have Say to test logic through hands-on experiments. You want to find a function that feels like a co-pilot, not your main voice, but a strong, active support. Step 3. Feeling into your tertiary function. The tertiary is often underexplored, but deeply you. It's where you go for comfort, play, and low-pressure expression. It's your emotional flavor, your side hobby, your private gift. Ask, what kind of activities or mental habits soothe me? What do I enjoy doing when I don't have to be productive? When I'm being playful, expressive, or artistic, which mental processes show up? This function may not be your strength in the professional world, but it shows up in your soul time. It often adds warmth or personality contrast. Step 4. Meeting your inferior function. The inferior function is the one you most avoid, yet secretly crave. It often shows up in overreactions. Why did that trigger me so deeply? Repetitive longings. I wish I could be more like that. Shadow patterns, controlling others, self-sabotage, projection. Ask, what kind of people do I admire and feel intimidated by? What do I find exhausting but compelling? What mental habits do I struggle to sustain, but feel drawn to mastering someday? When you identify your inferior function, you name the key to your integration path. Putting it all together. Let's say you feel most at home when interpreting meaning through deep, intuitive vision, NI dominant. Supported by organizing your insights into practical systems, Te auxiliary. Emotionally enriched when spending time with personal values and empathy, Phi tertiary. Both challenged and drawn toward objective analysis and crystalline clarity, T inferior. That stack is Ni, Te, Phi, T, which maps to the archetype, the vision alchemist. Exercises to refine your stack. Journal about a memory where you felt fully yourself. What function were you using? Make a functions and conflict list. When you're upset, what kind of internal battle is happening? Ask friends, what do I seem naturally good at? What do I avoid or overdo? Try describing yourself as a 4-element creature. Your dominant is fire, your auxiliary is wind, your tertiary is water, your inferior is earth, or invent your own metaphor. Closing. The soul remembers. This chapter is not about getting a perfect label. It's about creating a mirror that reflects the deeper patterns you already live out. When you meet your true soul stack, it won't feel like learning something new. It will feel like coming home. And once you know your stack, you can meet the archetype that honors it. In the next chapter, we begin to explore the 56 core soul types, the heart of the architecture. Your pattern has a name. Your story is part of a greater map. Let's step into the soul constellation together.